Good morning. I'm delighted to be here, and this morning I'm going to present to you a summary of a literature review that I've just recently completed, and it is titled Defining the Features of Registry-Based Randomised Control Trials. So just a bit of background, these trials have been increasing in numbers in recent years, and these are pragmatic trials that utilise patient data which is embedded in these big registries, and they use the registries to power these trials for things such as casework reform completion, data collection, randomisation and follow-up trial data. So the first reported RCT that we are aware of was a trial called the TASTE trial, which was a Scandinavian-based trial, and these researchers utilised the Sweetheart registry to facilitate recruitment, randomisation and outcome event detection. And this trial enrolled a very impressive 7,244 participants over just 2 years and 9 months across 31 centres. Now, the advantages of RCTs include a substantial recruitment of patients in a very timely manner. They can support data collection, they can facilitate extensive trial follow-up periods, and research-specific registries can have a randomisation module actually embedded within the software. So the question of my literature review, so while some RCTs are described as registry-based, their methodology can be dissimilar in practice, thus causing difficulty in interpreting the exact definition of a registry-based randomised control trial. And also some RCTs, while incorporating a registry into their protocol, they don't have registry-based in their descriptive titles. So there doesn't appear to be a consensus in the literature as to what are the defining features of these particular trials. So the purpose of our study was to define the features of registry-based randomised control trials by identifying RCTs that utilise the registry, establish common factors between them, and also to categorise them. So just very quickly, my inclusion criteria, obviously they had to be RCTs that utilise the registry to power one or more key trial procedures. We included cluster randomised trials, and we only included primary protocols only that used a registry. We didn't include RCTs that used registries to obtain additional follow-up data. So we completed a comprehensive literature search in the PubMed database using a combination of the terms registry-based randomised control trial. This produced 3,541 potential articles, and we did have to screen all titles and abstracts. We selected 99 for full review, and in total 68 randomised control trials utilising a registry to facilitate key trial procedures were included in our study. So we then we categorised and defined each registry-linked activity. Now, these primarily fell under recruitment and or randomisation and or primary outcome detection. So we defined them as RRCT-R, meaning recruitment-linked registry-based. This is going to get very wordy now. RRCT-A, meaning allocation-linked registry-based randomised control trial. RRCT-O, meaning outcome measure-linked registry-based randomised control trial. And for the purposes of our study, we did focus on primary outcome only. And definition 4 would encompass all of those three registry-linked activities, and we defined it and categorised it as RRCT-RAO. So just a couple of results. So 9 of our trials utilised a registry to facilitate those three procedures: randomisation, allocation and outcome. 26 trials utilised a registry for 2 of the 3 definitions, and 32 trials utilised a registry for just 1. Now, of these 32 trials, 18 used a registry to facilitate primary outcome measure, and 14 used a registry to facilitate recruitment. And then for 10 trials, this is where, for me, it started to get quite interesting. For 10 of these trials, it wasn't clear within the literature or within that particular study and how it was reported if a registry was used to facilitate randomisation and in what way. For one trial, it was not clear if a registry was used to facilitate recruitment, and for one trial, it was not clear if a registry was used to facilitate primary outcome measures. And where studies were unclear to me, they were also unclear to my supervisors, because we would have discussed the studies where it wasn't easy to figure out. So just a bit on recruitment, 51 trials utilised a registry to facilitate recruitment, and the majority of these trials recruited a very large sample size. Population-based screening trials accounted for the largest volume of recruitment, right up to 182,000. And the lowest planned sample size, which used a registry for recruitment, was a trial recruiting patients with ALS. Again, the language used to describe the recruitment process within the trials varied. Some said a registry was to screen for participants, some was to identify, and some wouldn't then go on to say what identifying actually meant or where they were identified, how they were identified. In terms of randomisation, 12 trials utilised a registry to facilitate randomisation. Again, the specific details on how this process took place varied. For some trials, it was reported that a study-specific randomisation module was developed and incorporated into a registry. Some stated it was randomisation was completed using a dedicated module within a registry, but again, it was hard to distinguish what that actually meant. In certain studies, we were able to get clarity. So there was one trial where the randomisation module, I think this is very clever actually for investigators out there. So a module was embedded within a registry, meaning the investigator could log onto the registry, click a button, the registry would randomise the patient and feed the treatment back then to the investigator. And again, for 3 publications, this was unclear, but personal communication stated that this was the case, for those studies also. And then finally, for outcome measure linked, 50 trials utilised a registry to enable primary outcome measurements or to assist them get this outcome data. Mortality accounted for many trials, and this is most prevalent amongst the Scandinavian trials. Communication-based interventions or strategies to increase vaccination rates in children accounted for the second most primary outcome measurement. And in terms of long-term data, trials are accessing outcome measurements for right up to 30 years. And again, just for one trial, it wasn't clear exactly how a registry was used to obtain the data, but it was in the paper that it was going to be used. So RCTs that utilise a registry for recruitment, allocation and outcome have shown considerable advantages, especially in terms of recruitment. And though they are increasing, they are still an underutilised trial methodology. During the screening process, it was quite difficult for some trials to distinguish the exact role of the registry. It was also difficult to decide if routinely collected health data, electronic lists or administrative data sets fell under the term of actual registry data, and then should they be included or should they not be included within my study. And these can be significant barriers to the use of RCTs in the long term. Without consistent terminologies, these trials cannot be accurately linked to the existing literature. It is essential that trialists and researchers can review published trials and endeavour to duplicate trial designs as well as merge their findings in a meta-analysis. And we do propose the following terms to be included in all titles and abstracts of, within PubMed when you're doing your search within the Cochrane Library, to define these RCTs. So where a registry is used for recruitment, include RCT-R. If it's used for randomisation, use RCT allocation. For outcome measures, and we would suggest for all outcome measures, not just primary, we would use RCTO and include RCTO or AO if you are using a registry to power recruitment, randomisation and outcome measures. And we also would suggest, there is actually one underway, there isn't an extension to the consort at the moment, to help clinicians and investigators and researchers to report on a registry-based randomised control trial. So we would suggest an extension to the consort specifically for RCTs. And that is all. Thank you.